What's up, everybody? I'm Just Wayne, and welcome to the Just Wayne Show. And we have been experiencing just 72 hours of chaos and crazy and calamity at the front part of the Trump administration. And when I just was ready to put my phone down in perpetuity, all of a sudden, Apple Music and the NFL release an ad for the Super Bowl halftime show with Kendrick Lamar announcing that he will have a featured guest in SZA. And I just want to take a second and say thank you, Kendrick, because it was getting a little dark out here. I needed just a little moment of reprieve, just a little something to make me feel good about something that's coming up. And so today I actually want to talk to you about the announcement of the Super Bowl, both the original announcement and this updated announcement. I want to talk to you about the Super Bowl itself and some thoughts I have about what Kendrick might do. And then I want to talk about what entertainment is going to mean in this new Trump era that we're living in. And so without further ado, thank you so much for coming to my TED Talk and welcome to the Just Wayne Show.
There is nothing that I wouldn't do.
For your attention, please. Can I have your attention, please? Everybody just look at me. Everybody just look at me.
The NFL, in partnership with Apple Music, dropped a brand new ad for the Kendrick Lamar halftime show. Now, as you all probably know, I've been looking forward to this halftime show since it was announced, in part because I love Kendrick's music, but also because I love Kendrick's live shows. And so between recognizing that we're gonna get a Super Bowl performance, and then there was the announcement of the tour, which I'm going to opening night, and I'm super excited about that, and I will be talking about that here on this channel. So before I go any further, please take a second, like, comment, subscribe, share, press some buttons, interact, hit the little bell button so you get notifications of when I post, all that jazz. Back to our regularly scheduled programming of week content. It's slow jamming. Anyway, so I've been looking forward to this because when it was first announced, you had this gigantic flag that was behind him, and he had the jug machine, and he was pushing out the footballs, and he was having this conversation with somebody behind the camera about how excited he is about being able to perform at the Super Bowl halftime show. And he went into this whole thing about no round twos, because at the time, Drake had been posting on his Instagram story talking about going round two. There's going to be a round two. We will win round two, about the beef that he lost. And he lost the beef so bad that he is suing his own record label for allowing his opponent in the beef to put out music that beat him in the beef. We're going to talk more about that later on when we talk about the Super Bowl itself and Not Like Us possibly being performed at the Super Bowl. But anyway, when you saw that first announcement, it created a lot of buzz, a lot of imagery, and one of the big moments of imagery in that original was him standing in front of this large American flag, which was a callback to a movie called Patton about General Patton going into war. So this warfare motif that was existing there. The entire thing was directed by Dave Free, Dave Free, right? So the whole thing is, not only is he performing at the Super Bowl, but he's starting to paint this picture. As a fan of Kendrick, I'm always trying to find these Easter eggs. I told one of my friends who was a Swiftie, I was like, I do understand y'all a little bit, because they're always watching performances and going, oh my gosh, and then she said this, and that connects to this one lyric, this, and so maybe she's gonna drop her super deluxe 13th edition of the 13th album on the 13th, because 13's her lucky number. I figured it out. Like, I kind of get it, but in part because Kendrick actually delivers on some of these Easter eggs that we think that we find. And so watching that initial advertisement, it was like, is he starting to construct right here what the story is going to be? Because in his performances, he really leans into developing and building out a storyline. But when we got this new announcement, there were a couple key things that we saw. One, he's on the field, he's on the phone on the field talking about how big the field is. And a lot of people don't know how big this field is until you're standing on it, which I think speaks to what he intends to do in the show of utilizing the entirety of the football field in order to tell the story he's looking to tell. We just recently saw this, by the way, with Beyonce in her halftime show on Christmas, who utilized the entirety of the football field and gave us several different sets in order to tell her story through Cowboy Carter. And so I think it's a beautiful connection to what we've just recently seen. And I know myself included, a lot of us made a connection between what Beyonce did on Christmas and what Kendrick could possibly be doing at the Super Bowl. So he's on the phone. He's talking about we're on the field. I know people don't realize how big this field is. I'm trying to make sure I'm keeping my body moving. I'm prepared for this. So he's prepping for this reality. And in the background, we see these people marching. Now, I think this could be one of two things. One, it could be a callback to the wartime motif that we saw in the first ad when he is kind of this General Patton type character, and those are his soldiers marching into battle. And that might, if that is the case, there might be some sort of a general warfare type motif and thematic that he constructs in the story for his performance. It's also possible that that was a marching band getting ready. And so, while there's a part of me that really wants to figure out ahead of time what it's going to be, like what he's going to do, and would love it for it to be that, especially considering the last words that we heard in the official beef were from Drake in The Heart Part 6. And he says, "I'm a war general." Right? Like he goes into this idea of being a war general. He got his medallions. He's got his stripes on him. And so while Drake is constructing this entire idea that he is a war general, that he's prepared, that he's battle tested. And so he, in his battle testedness, planted some information for Kendrick. And he's like, ha ha ha, we tricked you into taking this information. Your whole song is actually debunked because look I'm a war general. I set you up. Those were the last words that we officially heard in the beef. So I think it would be really interesting to then take that and flip it on its head and say, actually, no, you aren't. I am. And watch the tactical ways of warfare that I've conducted. Also, remember that in 616 in LA, when Kendrick begins to pray, he says, "God, my confession is yours, but who am I if I don't go to war? There's opportunity in win-loss." So there's this idea that Kendrick is grappling with who he is in 616 in LA, and that really at his most primal, he loves going to war. Which then we see this idea play out in Reincarnated, where he's now embodying Lucifer, and he's having this conversation with God in which God is telling them he loves the shedding of blood, that he loves the warfare. And so you see this idea of warfare not only from Drake in The Heart Part 6, but you see it in Kendrick describing himself in 616 in LA, and then talking about how he has incarnated this fallen angel and reincarnated on GNX. And so if it is in fact that he's building from that initial war reference back to the Patton movie for General Patton, and now what we're seeing in this ad is soldiers in the background, it would be really interesting to see him pull that string of this warfare idea that lives deep inside of him, and how that could be a part of how he constructs this particular story. It's also important to note, and I'm getting way ahead of myself, but whatever, we hear. It's important to note that the way that Kendrick likes to develop these things at times is satirical. And so when he performed at the Grammys in 2017, he literally told us that it is the satire, XXX, a satire by Kendrick Lamar, right? Because Damn is the entirety of the album Damn is a satire about America. And he is embodying this individual who represents America. And in XXX featuring U2, we get the most explicit reality of the satire that had been building for the entirety of that album. And so I'd be really interested to see on this particular performance, as we've now seen him talk about warfare, both in the beef, we heard him talk about warfare on his album, we see him reference warfare in the original ad for the Super Bowl, and now we have the possibility of soldiers marching in the background, if that is a motif that he will intend to carry into the performance itself. Now, if I end up being completely wrong on this and it ends up being that those are not soldiers, but rather those are band members in a marching band, it would also feel very fitting for New Orleans, for a city and a region that is filled with historically Black colleges and universities. And if you know anything about historically Black colleges and universities, halftime is game time, because the marching bands in that area are everything. And if you remember when the Joe Budden podcast responded and reacted to the songs of the beef from that infamous weekend when all of those songs dropped, Joe Budden had this to say.
Oh, God. You better thank your fucking heavens up above that it is not HBCU season. Oh, yeah. You better thank
Yeah.
God
100%.
that them bears.
No,
It's coming.
no, it's still happening. It's still happening.
And so it very well may be that those are actually members of a marching band. It could also be both. And I think that would be a very fascinating concept to play out. And so I'm super excited about it. And so let's just keep talking about the Super Bowl performance itself, because now we know for sure that SZA is going to be a guest performer, which makes sense because the two are going to go on tour together for the Grand National Tour coming up. And once again, I will be at the opening night of that tour in Minneapolis, and I will be taking a ton of video and coming right back to you and doing a full breakdown of everything that I experienced. Now, I will try to do that without giving away a bunch of spoilers, but of course, you can always Google and find out what the set list is. I'm going in blind, and I'm excited about the fact that I'm going in blind, not knowing what exactly we're going to get, but being able to take in whatever Kendrick and SZA decide to give us. And also, this is my official plea to whomever at TDE. Let Doechii go on that tour with him, please. Because Doechii is legitimately one of my favorite artists out right now. Like, she be rapping, all right? So let that happen, make that happen, and like, you have me. Like, you got me. I'm all in. And so the Super Bowl itself, the Super Bowl performance itself, we know that SZA is going to be performing with Kendrick, and I'm so intrigued because this is all happening in the middle of the reality that Drake sued his own record label for defamation because of the song Not Like Us. Now, I might do a completely different video at some point, a completely different podcast episode at some point, going portion by portion, talking about the lawsuit itself. And maybe that's something good to do leading up to the performance at halftime. But one of the big takeaways for me when I read the lawsuit is not just that Drake is mad that UMG didn't protect him, but that he really wants to make sure that the song does not get performed at the Super Bowl. I think that is one of the motivating factors behind this lawsuit is Kendrick is going to perform at the Super Bowl. He names it in the lawsuit. He says that UMG leverages partnerships in order to get Kendrick in the Super Bowl in order to further defame him on the biggest stage in America. And so I think this was hoping to get an injunction to keep the song from being played. Here's the silly part about this. And Drake doesn't have friends. Drake doesn't have friends or smart people around him, because what he's doing is he is causing everyone to actually look at the thing that he doesn't want them to look at. If I am the NFL, if I am Apple Music, if I am Fox, I am telling Kendrick, I am begging him, please do this song, please, and do it last in your set list. Because the fact that Drake is suing about this, the fact that we all know that this really comes down to this reality that Drake does not want that song out there, it makes it so that there is more publicity going into this. There'll be more conversation going into this halftime show about that song and therefore about this performance than there would have been otherwise. Drake is actually doing the perfect marketing for the Super Bowl halftime show for them. The NFL couldn't even buy this type of publicity if it wanted to. And so here it is that Drake is trying to keep this song from being performed. And I'll be honest with you, I, going into this before the lawsuit, did not think that Kendrick was going to do Not Like Us at the halftime of the Super Bowl. I figured he was trying to construct some sort of story, and I didn't know if that song was going to fit in the story. Kendrick is also not the type to I'm going to give the people what they want. That's just not who Kendrick is as an artist. And so I didn't think that there was any chance that that was going to be how he approached this. Now, he might do it, but we're going to talk about that in a second. And so, as we talked about already up to this point, Kendrick has shown us the ability through the multiplicity of his performances. I'm so upset with Amazon for taking Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers tour off of there, but if you had a chance to watch that, you saw how he built up this entire story around quarantine. So the tour was him going through quarantine and therapy. Right? If you watch the 2017 Grammy performance and you see him doing everything from the album Damn, if you go watch, I believe it was the 2015 performance, and you see him doing the things from To Pimp a Butterfly and Untitled Unmastered, you see that he constructs these performances to have a thematic and a through line. And so I will be honest with you, I've thought about this a lot in the last several months since the announcement came out, and I cannot for the life of me think of what that story is going to be. Honestly, I think that there would be two different stories based on the outcome of the election. I think had Kamala won the election, there would be a particular story that Kendrick was going to tell. It might be a much more frantic and much more overt political story that he's telling now than he was before. I also think that the current events like the wildfires in LA could have an impact on how he tells this story. And specifically, as more and more news comes out, considering the way that he's approached his music, like I said, I can't think of it. I can go through his discography and say what I think that I would do if I were him, but I actually don't know inside his brain enough to know. But if you'll indulge me, I would just like to talk about a couple songs that I would love to hear him perform during halftime. Number one, Squabble Up. These are in no particular order, by the way. I want to hear him do Squabble Up because when we heard that snippet on the front end of the Not Like Us music video, it lit every one of us up. The internet was lit up. We were like, please give this to us. Like, please let us hear the rest of this. We just want to know. We just want to hear this song. So when we finally got the whole song, man, I think we're for sure going to get TV Off, in part because it's actually laced into the lyric of the song. Walking through New Orleans with the etiquette of LA screaming, mustard! Right? So I think it's very much, right, like the second half of that song, the verse in the second half of that song is speaking very explicitly in football terms and talking about the Super Bowl. So it makes total sense that he's going to perform it at the Super Bowl because it almost comes across as a song he wrote when he found out he was getting the Super Bowl. So I think Squabble Up, I think TV Off. I would love to hear All the Stars. Now, I'm sure we're going to get an entire set of SZA songs since she's a guest artist that is just a compilation of her music. And I'm sure we're going to get SOS. I really hope we get Shirt. I love that song so much. But we're going to get her songs. But I would love to hear All the Stars as that collaboration. I'm also curious if he'll do something like Loyalty and have SZA sing Rihanna's part. But we'll see what happens with that. Which leads to, I think we're either going to get Luther or 30 for 30. I honestly feel like between the two, we might get 30 for 30 more than we get Luther, but kind of just that middle vibe of songs. But once again, it all really depends on the story he's trying to construct in the totality of the performance. As far as throwback songs go, I think we might get Money Trees. I think Money Trees would be a great one. First of all, that song's hype. Second of all, that song has gone up on TikTok several times. And so I think it would be a really good one because for the general audience watching this, they'll probably know that song. I think we'll either get Humble or DNA. I don't think we're going to get All Right because we got All Right in the last time he performed the Super Bowl. We also got Good Kid. No, we got Mad City the last time he was performing at the Super Bowl. And so I think between Humble or DNA, we're going to get one of those two. And then finally, I think we're going to get Not Like Us. And like I said, I don't know if we would have got this without the lawsuit. I think Drake actually put us in position to hear Not Like Us performed at the Super Bowl. While as much as I'm saying Kendrick is not you got to give the people what they want type person, Kendrick's also petty. There's just some part of me that just feels like Kendrick sat back and was like, oh, we suing people over this. How many options you really got? I mean, it's too many options. I was finna pass on that body. I'm John Stockton. But now we're going to get, trying to strike a chord, and it's probably, and I just really personal, local, immediate, I really want him to not do it. Like, I want him to not say certain things. I want him to allow the entire stadium full of football fans who are not coming to a Kendrick concert to sing those parts. Like, I would love for him to be doing the part, right? Why you trolling ain't you tired? Trying to strike a chord, and it's probably, and then everything cut. And all you hear is the stadium full of people going, A minor. And then they not like us. They not like, I feel like it would be and I feel like it would be the great way to end the set. Like, I think just getting through, because Kendrick's discography is deep and it's really actually well known. One of my pet peeves when we were in the middle of the beef is people were like, no one's ever even really listened to Kendrick music. Is you really bumping, like, singing me, I'm dying of thirst. Like, No one, no, yeah, it's a deep cut. What are we talking about? It's one of the best songs I've ever heard. Also, they're like, we can't play that around no hoes. Bro, what are we talking about? Also, what hoes? So, but Kendrick's discography is actually super deep, and people, I believe, know it really well, especially sometimes may not know that it's Kendrick's song, but then all of a sudden they play and they go, oh. And I think we're gonna get a lot of that in this particular performance. But man, to end the entire set with Not Like Us, I think it would be perfect. I think it would be the perfect way to end it. And people will be talking about the entirety of the set. Now, I also wonder with that, if from an artistic standpoint, he would choose not to do it so that that's not the focus. But like I said, he's the boogeyman. I can't heads or tails on this, but I really believe that Drake deciding to sue has put us in the position that this is what he gets to do. #bars. And so I'm excited about this. Like, I don't know if this has come across in the entirety of this episode, but I'm so excited about this. I love music. Obviously, I'm a musician, but I'm also a consumer. I'm a curator, curating these sounds to your earbuds. I rap, produce, and mix a track. That means that there was no subs. I saw the music needed TLC. That means there's no scrubs. If that beat isn't made by me, it shouldn't get no love, right? Like, this is who I am. This is what I do. And also, the experience of being able to see something, a combination of things that we've never heard before is exciting. Like last year, I was in Las Vegas at a Super Bowl watch party at a hotel, like a pool area. And we went crazy for Usher's halftime, which was an incredible halftime show, right? Like, I'm probably going to be out. Like, I'm probably going to be out somewhere, like at a sports bar, watching the Super Bowl and getting to be in a room full of people watching this halftime show and watching the room go up again. And I'm hyped for it. And I'm excited about it, not just because I love music, but because these moments matter. Like I said when I opened the show, we've hit a breaking news cycle that is breaking folks' necks. Like, word to Busta Rhymes, right? Like, we're in a news cycle right now where literally every time I open my phone, it's like some major thing is happening. And when we're in that type of breaking news cycle, these types of announcements can make a difference in our day. Now, does this announcement stop the fires in LA? No. Does this announcement stop the Trump administration from telling health officials that they cannot communicate the severity of bird flu? No. Does this announcement restore the civil rights era executive orders that have protected black folks? No. And they're not meant to. But when those things are happening, it's important that we get reprieves. Just this Monday, it was Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And every time I talk about Dr. King, I always like to show a picture of him smiling. Because in that picture, I believe we get something that we don't often get from Dr. King, which is two things. One, the picture's in color, and two, he's smiling. I think civil rights pictures are always depicted in black and white because it makes it seem like it was further away from today than it actually was. And I think it's important that as much work as Dr. King put in for the rights of black folks, and then after the Civil Rights Act was passed, he spent the rest of his life fighting against poverty. As much work as he put in, as many death threats as he experienced, as many times as he was jailed and beaten and had dogs sicked on him, that man still found ways to have joy. And I think in this era that we're in, we have to find every single means of joy that we can. And so I'm going to push people against the idea of they're just trying to distract you. This is just a distract. Trust me, I'm paying attention to the news. I see what's happening. And when something that I can enjoy comes about, the intentional consumption of art for my enjoyment belongs to me. It is a revolutionary act. It is a resistance act against the chaos and the crazy and the controversy that is swirling around us every single day. I know it's there. I'm studying that it's there. I'm reading the headlines. I'm reading the executive orders. I'm seeing the press briefings. I'm doing all these things. And at the same time, when something comes across my feed or something comes across my phone that gives me the ability to laugh or to smile or to cry or to have a moment of emotion to myself or with my community, I'm going to enjoy it. And I hope that the collective of us give people the opportunity to enjoy stuff this year. Like, we know the world's burning. We know. I'm still going to go to this Beyonce concert, which, by the way, Beyonce, listen, hey, I've been in love with you since 1997. And literally, I'm probably one of the biggest Michael Jackson fans that anybody knows. And you have surpassed Michael in my mind. And I am begging of you, please, let Netflix have the Renaissance visuals and drop this tour expeditiously. Thank you. Love you. Appreciate it. Okay, back to our regular scheduled programming. These types of announcements, like when Beyonce is going to announce. These types of announcements, like when people go to a tour and post it on their story. Don't yuck people's yum. I tell my kids that all the time. Don't yuck people's yum. Allow folks to enjoy things. Trust me, if you've been watching my feed, you know that I'm staying up to date on all the things that are happening. And I'm keeping you all up to date. And when I saw that announcement that SZA is performing with Kendrick, it was a moment of joy in the midst of the chaos and the crazy and the controversy. So thank you, Kendrick, because I needed that. And thank you for coming to my TED Talk. This episode of The Just Wayne Show was written by me, Just Wayne. The theme music is Attention, also by me, Just Wayne, from my album, Algorithm and Blues. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a second to subscribe, like, and please share this episode with as many people so that everyone can have this moment of joy. I'll be here every week talking about whatever is going on in the world. But until I see you next time, thank you so much for coming to my TED Talk.